My friends, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share with you today could directly affect the money that hits your bank account this month. If you are receiving SSI, SSDI, or any Social Security benefit, there is a new rule going into effect in March that millions of Americans have no idea about, and some of you could see your monthly payment go up, while others could be facing an unexpected reduction. I know that's a lot to take in. I know some of you are already sitting there with your bills spread out on the table, trying to figure out how you're going to make ends meet this month. And I want you to know, I see you. I'm here with you. This channel has always been a place where you get straight talk, no fluff, no confusion, just the real information you need to protect yourself and your family. So today, we're going to walk through everything. The new March SSA rule, what it means for your $1,900 payment, who stands to benefit, who needs to be careful, and most importantly, what you can do right now to make sure you're not leaving a single dollar on the table. Stay with me through the entire video because the most important part is coming up in just a few minutes and you don't want to miss it. Now, before we dive into the numbers, I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what we're actually talking about. The Social Security Administration, the SSA, has announced a significant policy update that takes effect this March, and it touches millions of people across the country who rely on supplemental security income, Social Security disability insurance, or both. And when I say millions, I'm not exaggerating. We're talking about roughly 7.4 million people who receive SSI alone, and more than 8 million who receive SSDI. And a large portion of those folks receive both at the same time, what the SSA calls concurrent benefits. Here's the heart of it. The new rule involves how the SSA is recalculating what's called the substantial gainful activity threshold, how it handles certain income offsets, and how it applies its revised asset and resource limits for SSI recipients going forward. Now, I know that language sounds like something out of a government manual, so let me translate that into plain English for you, because this is where it really starts to hit home. For years, the SSA has had rules about how much money or resources you're allowed to have if you want to keep receiving SSI. If you had more than $2,000 in assets, things like savings, cash on hand, certain property, you could lose your benefits entirely. That limit has been frozen since 1989. That's right, over 30 years without an update, while the cost of everything from groceries to medicine has skyrocketed. And now, finally, there is movement on this front, combined with other operational changes at the SSA that could affect how your payment is calculated starting this month. Let's talk about the $1,900 number, because I know that's what caught your attention, and it absolutely should. Where does that figure come from? Well, in 2025, following the annual cost of living adjustment and the COLA increase of 2.5%, the maximum federal SSI benefit for an individual rose to $967 per month. For a couple, that's up to $1,450. Now, for SSDI recipients, the average monthly payment in 2025 sits right around $1,137, but many recipients, especially those who worked in higher wage jobs before their disability, receive considerably more than that, with some payments pushing toward $1,900, $1,200, or even higher depending on their earnings history. But here's what I really want you to pay attention to. When I say $1,900 in the context of this new March rule, I'm talking about the combined effect, the total monthly income picture for people who receive both SSI and SSDI together, plus any state supplementation, plus any additional credits or adjustments that are now being recalculated under the new rule. For a lot of you watching, your total monthly benefit package, when you add everything together correctly, could be at or near that $1,900 mark. And the question is this new rule going to help you get there, or is it going to pull something back? Let's start with the good news, because there is genuinely good news here for a meaningful group of people. If you have been receiving SSI and you've been quietly holding on to a small savings account, maybe a few $100s, maybe just over $1,000, because you were terrified of losing your benefits, this update is for you. The SSA has been directed as part of broader modernization efforts to adjust how certain resources are counted. And for people in that delicate middle ground, this could mean breathing room you haven't had in decades. Think about someone like Margaret from Ohio. a 71-year-old woman who has been on SSI for 6 years. She inherited $1,900 from her sister's estate 2 years ago, and she was so worried about the SSA finding out and cutting her off that she spent it down as fast as she could on groceries, on her prescriptions, on things she actually needed. But she felt guilty the whole time, like she was doing something wrong just by having a little money. Margaret's story is not unique. It's the story of millions of Americans who have been forced to stay financially vulnerable just to stay eligible for benefits they desperately need. The new adjustments, combined with the ongoing push to update resource limits, give people like Margaret a little more margin to breathe. Additionally, if you've recently returned to part-time work or have a small amount of earned income, the new calculation methods may allow more of that income to be excluded before your SSI is reduced. The SSA's earned income exclusion, which lets you keep the first $65 of earned income plus half of anything above that before your benefit is affected, remains in place, and the new rule reinforces how that's applied, potentially in your favor. Now, here's the part where I need you to lean in close, because this is where some of you could get hurt if you're not paying attention. The same modernization push that is bringing some flexibility to resource limits is also bringing increased scrutiny to a process called benefit offsetting, and more aggressively, the SSA has ramped up its efforts to recover what it calls overpayments. An overpayment happens when the SSA sends you more money than you were technically entitled to receive, and then, sometimes years later, they come back and say, you owe us that money back. In recent months, there has been a surge in overpayment notices going out to SSI and SSDI recipients across the country. Some of these notices are for amounts as small as $200. Others are for thousands of dollars. And here's what scares me for a lot of you. The SSA now has the authority to withhold up to 100% of your monthly benefit to recover an overpayment, which means some people have literally received a check for $0 after years of counting on that money. Now, I want to be very clear here. If you receive an overpayment notice, you have rights. You have the right to appeal. You have the right to request a waiver if repaying the money would cause you financial hardship. And for most SSI and SSDI recipients, that standard is very easy to meet. You also have the right to request a lower repayment rate, but you have to act. You cannot ignore those notices. If one arrives in your mailbox, call the SSA at 1-800-772-1213, or better yet, contact your local Social Security office and request an in-person appointment. Do not wait. Let's shift gears and talk about timing, because I get so many questions every month about when the money actually arrives. For March 2025, here's what the payment schedule looks like. SSI payments are typically issued on the first of the month, so SSI recipients should have seen their March payment arrive on Saturday, March 1st, and because the first fell on a weekend, the SSA may have pushed that payment out a day or two earlier, meaning some of you may have received your deposit at the end of February. That is completely normal and nothing to be alarmed about. For SSDI and regular Social Security retirement recipients, the payment date depends on your birthday. If your birthday falls between the 1st and the 10th of the month, your payment arrives on the second Wednesday, which in March 2025 is March 12th. If your birthday falls between the 11th and the 20th, you're looking at the third Wednesday, March 19th. And if your birthday is between the 21st and the 31st, your payment comes on the fourth Wednesday, which is March 26th. Write those dates down, put them in your phone. And if your payment doesn't arrive within 3 days of its scheduled date, contact the SSA right away. Now, the 2.5% COLA increase that took effect in January 2025 is already baked into these payments. So if you haven't already noticed a slight uptick in your monthly deposit compared to what you were receiving in December 2024, take a look at your bank statement or your My Social Security account online. The average SSDI recipient saw an increase of roughly $38 per month. The average SSI recipient saw about $24 more. It's not a fortune, but in a world where a gallon of milk costs $4 and prescription copays keep climbing, every dollar matters. For those of you watching who are veterans, and I know there are a lot of you, I want to make sure we don't skip over what's happening on the VA side of things, because it affects your total monthly income picture significantly. Veterans who receive both Social Security benefits and VA disability compensation need to understand how these two streams of income interact, particularly when it comes to SSI eligibility. VA disability compensation is counted as unearned income by the SSA, which means it can reduce your SSI payment dollar for dollar after the first $20 general income exclusion. So if you're a veteran receiving $800 per month in VA compensation, and you're also trying to get SSI, only the first $20 of that VA payment is excluded. The rest counts against your SSI. This is not new, but it's critically important, especially in light of the March rule updates, because any change in how income is calculated can cascade down and affect whether you're even eligible for SSI at all. The good news for veterans is that VA aid and attendance benefits and certain VA pension payments are handled differently in some circumstances. If you're a veteran and you're not sure how your VA payments interact with your Social Security benefits, I strongly encourage you to reach out to a veteran service organization, the DAV, the American Legion, the VFW. They all have free benefits counselors who can sit down with you and map out your entire income picture at no cost to you. Now, let's talk strategy, because this is where I love helping people find money they didn't know they had. One of the most underused tools available to SSI recipients is something called the Plan to Achieve Self-Support, or PASS. If you have a disability and you want to save money toward a specific work goal, going back to school, starting a small business, buying adaptive equipment, the SSA allows you to set aside money in a PASS account that does not count against your SSI resource limit. This is a hidden gem that most people have never heard of, and it can make a real difference in your financial life. Another strategy worth knowing: if you're over 65 and your income is low, you may be eligible for the Medicare Savings Program, which can pay your Medicare Part B premium, that's $185 per month in 2025, on your behalf. That's essentially $185 back in your pocket every single month. If you're not enrolled and you think you might qualify, contact your state Medicaid office or call 1-800-MEDICARE and ask specifically about the Medicare Savings Program. And finally, if you've never checked your Social Security earnings record for errors, please do it today. Go to ssa.gov, create your My Social Security account if you haven't already, and pull up your earnings history. If there are years where your earnings were underreported, which happens more often than you'd think, especially for people who worked multiple jobs or in cash-based industries, getting those corrected could permanently increase your monthly benefit. It is free to do. It takes about 20 minutes, and it could be worth hundreds of dollars more per month for the rest of your life. My friends, I know we covered a lot of ground today. New March SSA rules, the $900 payment picture, who wins and who needs to watch out, VA benefit interactions, overpayment notices, COLA updates, and strategies to find extra money you may not have known was yours. I want you to feel informed. I want you to feel empowered. And most of all, I want you to feel like you've got someone in your corner who is paying attention to all of this, so you don't have to do it alone. If this video helped you, if it gave you even one piece of information that protects your check or puts more money in your pocket, please share it with someone you love. Share it with your neighbor, your sister, your friend from church who's also on Social Security. They deserve to know this too. And if you have questions, drop them right down in the comments below. I read every single one, and I do my best to get back to as many of you as I can. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, you have earned every single dollar of this benefit. Don't let anyone take it from you without a fight.